working. It shows that marketplace healthcare costs have gone down because premium estimates have gone down. Additionally, the effort to constrain healthcare costs more broadly is showing continued momentum, as evidenced by the further reduction in projected Medicare spending.
Buried not so deep in the Obamacare plan to save American health care are more than a few telling lines detailing the serious issues and flaws with this concept. More than one caught the attention of our next guest, which is why he has been dubbed the economist who exposed Obamacare, and has also just been named winner of the Hayek Prize from the Manhattan Institute for his book, The Redistribution Recession. Pleasure to welcome into Midpoint, Casey Mulligan. Casey, thanks for taking the time to join us.
Oh, I'm glad to be here.
Congratulations, first of all, on the award. Rather prestigious, I would guess, and certainly it's for a 2012 book that you have. Was it a little bit of a surprise?
Very much a surprise. Yeah, Hayek, one of the greatest economists ever, and to get an award with his name on it is a great thrill for me.
We had to make sure that we gave you your chops on that because that is certainly something wonderful. All right, now let's go ahead and get to Obamacare right now. We talk about all these things that are buried in the plan. Everybody will ask right away, because we always want to go to the nth degree, the one thing that is buried in this plan, in your opinion, that you saw, that the normal person couldn't find if you tried, that it's just buried so deep that you really got to pay attention to get there?
The big one would be most employers out there are getting a kind of penalty because they already provide health care for their employees, and that means that their employees don't get any of the goodies in this law. Their employees just to get to help pay for them. And that affects tens of millions of workers, tens of millions of employers for those workers. And that's a big sacrifice. They're giving up. They used to have an advantage by offering people insurance, and now they find that turned around in their face to be a disadvantage. And that has a big negative drag on the economy.
Well, you said disadvantage, but there's another word, another dis in here. The disincentives of the Affordable Care Act, I think, is something that you find, and you found numerous ones. And it will, of course, always be surprising to some people who would go, why would an administration give us a health care plan with disincentives? But boy, you sure found them.
Right, well, that same provision is a disincentive because one way to get the goodies is not to work or to be working part-time. In fact, a bunch of people put in the awkward situation where if they move to part-time, they can actually have more cash. That's really a wrong way to run a labor market.
All right, now this comes up to the president himself saying that, and again, I'm going to paraphrase his comment, there is no serious evidence that the law is holding back economic growth. And I know that this was the one thing that the Wall Street Journal found that you caught right away. No serious evidence that the law is holding back economic growth. Other than what you just told us here, isn't there a lot more in here that, in your opinion, and as an economist, you should know about that is certainly holding back the economy?
Well, that was one of those statements like President Clinton's, what does is mean? You could say it's technically true. He said it before really the main harms to the economy were coming into force. So you're not going to see these negative effects until later this year, next year, or the year after. Then they're going to be obvious. But last year, they weren't obvious because we were still kind of living in the pre-ACA world.
Have we started to see these effects? And there are those who say we are and those who say we are not, but I'm going to pose the question anyway. Have we really started to see these effects on the stock market from what Obamacare has brought into the employers and to the workforce?
Actually, I'm not so sure what the effects in the stock market are going to be. The most damage the Obamacare does is to the labor market as opposed to the stock market. If you have a stock in a company that's very labor intensive, they might suffer, but a lot of these companies are working internationally, and they might not be affected by it, and they may be given some kind of competitive advantage to the extent that the law makes it difficult for new businesses to start up and grow. So I'm not sure I can tell you the stock market's coming down.
There is something else in here. You call this, and certainly I thought this was a quote that caught me, some unpleasant welfare arithmetic by creating economic incentives for individuals to work fewer hours. Give us an idea of some of that arithmetic.
Well, take, for example, the employer penalty. That's about $60 a week. And the employers and employees have to come up with somehow, because it's going to be a new penalty next year. And if you're only working 30 hours a week, you might as well just cut back an hour worth of work and gain that $60. Even if you're working 32 hours a week, you might want to cut back those 3 hours. It's $20 an hour the government's paying you to cut back your work. So those are some examples where there's going to be, I estimate, as many as 10 million people who can cut back their hours and have more cash for them and their employer.
With all of these things that Obamacare brings forward now and the economy, as you look at these things and you dissect these plans, what do you find there that is the easiest to fix, perhaps, or the one or two things that really strike out at you that with a very simple tweak here and there could be much better for the consumer and much better for the economy?
There are one or two, although there are so many problems in that law, I'm not sure I want to encourage that enterprise. But the number one thing would be these artificial breakpoints in, like at 30 hours. Things should be smoother. It shouldn't be a huge difference between a 29-hour work schedule and a 30-hour work schedule. That harms between having 49 employees versus 50. There shouldn't be a huge difference between earning $94,000 a year, $94,000 a year, and $95,000 a year. But the law has created all these large artificial differences, and people are going to be rearranging their affairs, wasting time, wasting energy, wasting productivity to try to get out of some of those strange situations.
I've got about 30, 40 seconds left. Certainly, Washington reads everything. Everybody wants to hear those different opinions. They don't always want to act. With what you have reported and what you have found, is there anybody in Washington listening to what you're telling them?
An awful lot are not. But some of the economists are. The economists at the CBO have listened very carefully and read very carefully. We've gone over spreadsheets together. So I appreciate their attentiveness to these issues. But most people in the town, they like the Affordable Care Act. They view it as a political victory, and they don't want to hear bad things about it.
If you're going to do this, ask an economist first, right, Casey?
I would advise that for sure.
And of course, the government never will, of course, because they know everything. Casey Mulligan, it is a fascinating article, The Economist Who Exposed Obamacare, in the Wall Street Journal, other places as well. People can read it there. Thanks so much for joining us, Casey. Good luck changing some minds.
You're welcome.
That would be the big thing. Can you change some minds? All right, here we go. Just about at the end of things, we ask you every single day when it comes down to social media to drop us a note, tell us what you think about the things that we have talked about here. And certainly Obamacare is always big on your mind. Stay with us, because here on Midpoint, we'll come back and question everything.
Hello,